Hey, how's it going everybody? Sinful Duck here and welcome to another Grim Dawn build video. Today, we're going to take a look at my Vitality Caster Ritualist. I haven't really found anything else like this out there on YouTube, so I wanted to post this because, well, partly because there's nothing else out there that I've found, but this is quickly becoming one of my favorite builds to play. It's incredibly powerful, the gameplay is fun, it's very versatile, so I had to show it to you guys. Before we get started, I do want to say a couple things. Number one, if you guys are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel grow, and I really appreciate the support. And if you do like this video, and you want to see more videos like this, give it a thumbs up. I get this question in every single video. Somebody's going to ask me, can this build do Crucible 150 through 170? I haven't done Crucible with this build yet, personally, not solo. I have other builds that have done 150 to 170 solo, and this guy is more powerful. This guy is more powerful than the characters that I've done 150 to 170 with, so I'm going to answer the question right off the bat and say yes. Yes, this guy can handle Crucible 150 to 170. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the video here. We're going to start off with the gear. I'm not going to take a lot of time to sit and explain a lot of what we've got here, so any questions you have on anything in this build, please leave a comment down below, and there will be a GrimTools link in the description if you guys need to check anything out. But let's get started here with our set. We went with a 4-piece set here, the Valgur's Hunger. So the 4-piece bonus is amazing. It's giving Siphon Souls Vitality Resist Reduction, more damage to Storm Totem, and extra Storm Totem. You can see the offhand here is adding Vitality damage to Siphon Souls, making it heal you for more. I mean, this set, this had to be in the build. It's so strong. So I went with this set, and there's 4 pieces to it, obviously. We've got the offhand, the gloves, which are giving us the Life Drinker proc, 10% chance on attack, that it shoots out a little Vitality Chain Lightning that does really good damage and heals you for 20% of it. Hits multiple targets too, so I mean, amazing on these gloves. The next piece in the set is the chest, Valgur's Raiment. And finally for the set is the headpiece, Valgur's Gems. This is giving us +1 all shaman there. Moving down the line here, we've got the Mythical Blood Fury Spalders. This is giving us some nice stats on the actual item itself, but the proc is giving us 150% vitality damage, and it's 100% chance when hit, so really strong there. Moving on to the boots, I had to craft a boatload of boots to get to these, and they're probably not perfect, but I decided to stick with them anyway because they had a few key stats on them that I wanted to hang on to. Number one, they have vitality damage, they have DA, and they have 52% elemental resistance. That was the big thing that made me hang on to these boots. That's a lot of vitality resistance. So, Seraphim, Stoneplate Greaves of Soleil's Malice. You can go with any set of these boots that kind of fill in the gaps that you need, so don't feel like these are a necessity right here. You can use any boots that fill in what you need here. Next up we have our medal, the Incorruptible Basilisk Crest of Readiness. That is also kind of a mouthful, just like the boots. But again, it fills a very important role in this build with 79% poison and acid resist. It's also given us damage reflect, +3 to decay, which lowers the enemy's damage done to us, and it takes half a second off the Ravenous Earth cooldown. Now, these things you actually have to go out and farm. They're not craftable, but they are farmable quite easily, actually. The mobs that you have to kill are in one specific area, but it is only a 4% drop chance, So that's kind of a problem, but I mean, you can see at 4% drop chance, I had to go through a lot of these to get the one that I needed. Moving on here, we have the mythical Boneweave Girdle. This is giving us OA/DA plus 2 Siphon Souls, and the skill Wave of Souls. Very, very cool. Does really high damage, 16 meter range, which is huge, and it heals you for 100% of the damage dealt. Our relic, I went with Impurity here. This is giving us some vitality damage, plus 1 necro, but it is mainly aether damage. I did take it for the Impure Blast proc, however. It's doing a good amount of vitality damage, it's doing some aether damage, it's healing us, and it's passive. It just goes off on its own when we're attacking. So that I really liked. You can use the Urborg's Reaping relic in this slot if you want to. It does give you the castable skill that you'll have to use. That's actually a melee skill, which is part of the reason why I didn't use it. Number 1, because it's a melee skill. And number 2, it's something you have to cast. We have enough buttons to press on this build that I just wanted to keep it simple and stick with passive damage that I didn't have to think about. So Impurity filled that role perfect. Next up, we have the mythical Wendigo Mane Leggings. These are giving us lots of good plus to skills, and they're giving us a little mini Siphon Souls. It's not huge damage, but it does help. It is nice little damage, and it does heal us a little bit, but we are getting nice stats and great plus to skills on these. Chest piece we already took a look at. Our weapon. This weapon in combination with the metal is very, very strong. So Reaper's Bone Spike of Soul Warding. We are obviously not a Reaper, so we are getting some plus to skills that don't really benefit us. But we are getting to use Devouring Swarm, Ravenous Earth, and Spectral Binding on this thing. The vitality damage roll on this is huge, as well as the health and OA. So that was kind of a no-brainer when this thing dropped to stick with that. But the reason why it pairs so well with the metal is you get half a second off Ravenous Earth there. You get almost another half second off of this, which is putting Ravenous Earth's cooldown, it's reducing it by almost a full second. And it's making the duration of Ravenous Earth 2 seconds longer. That's a huge amount of damage. And it lets you get 3 Ravenous Earths on the ground at the same time. So that is incredible there. Our rings, Mythical Signet of the Fallen, nice plus to skills, vitality damage, and Mark of the Fallen here. It's going to drop their vitality resist by 15%. It's going to do some vitality damage, but this is single target, so not as useful against a big pack, but it is very useful against a boss. Now with that said, our second ring is Mythical Curse Bearer, which again gives us some vitality damage plus the skills, but the skill, the granted skill on it, is Curse of Crushed Resolve. This is dropping vitality resistance by another 10%, but this is AoE, so this is good against a boss, this is good against a pack, this is just a great proc. Health regen by 100%, and it's AoE, so very, very strong there. I feel like the Curse Bearer for a Vitality Caster is kind of becoming one of the best in slot rings, and it's a blue, so very strong, and I really like this ring. Moving on to the amulet, we have Conduit of Wild Whispers. This thing is, look at the resists. 41% poison acid resist, so this amulet along with our metal and poison resist is more than taken care of. And then 35% elemental, so again, this amulet with our boots and elemental is more than taken care of. So great, great amulet there. But we're using it for the Storm Totem buffs. Half second off the recharge of Storm Totem, and they live for an additional 4 seconds. So if you look at right here, our 4-piece, we get 1 additional Storm Totem on the 4-piece set bonus. But with the standard cooldown and how long the totems live, you can only get 3. Even if you have the set, you just can't get more than 3 out. But with this amulet, making them live longer, you can get out all 4. So this was a very important amulet to pick up. With that, I think we've gone through all the gear, so let's go ahead and jump into the skills. The skills, I'm not going to get too much in depth with it. I'm going to talk about a couple of them, and then that is it. Assuming at this point you guys know the skills fairly well. If you don't and you have questions, again, leave them in the comments down below. First up, Wendigo Totem. I only have 1 point here. It's a small heal, but the reason I have it is so that I can stand in Wendigo Totem, and even if there's no enemies around, I get the buff from Blood Pact, which is giving me 124% vitality, and it's adding flat vitality to things like our Twin Fangs. So very strong. We've got Storm Totem, and we're converting lightning to vitality there. 25 out of 16. Devouring Swarm. You could leave this at 16 out of 16 if you wanted. I decided to overcap it, not because it increases the damage by a lot, but because it gives you an extra 6% vitality resist reduction. So that's what I went with there, 22 out of 16. We've got Grasping Vines here. Not for damage, but it is really good at proccing devotions. So we've got Grasping Vines there, 1 point. And 1 point here in Entangling Vines for the chance of immobilizing. This is actually very good for kiting. We've got 8 out of 12 Mogdrogan's Pact, Heart of the Wild 10 out of 10, and 12 out of 10 for Oak Skin. Let's move over to the Necromancer side here. We do have 1 point, and plus the skills puts us at 5 out of 10 here in Reaping Strike. Now, why do we have a melee skill and a caster build, you might wonder? And the reason is this, because if I'm face tanking a boss, and you guys will see this at the end of the video, but if I'm face tanking a boss, I can throw down all my skills. I can put down my totems, my Ravenous Earth, do all that, and I have a few seconds to kill before I need to cast it again. And so while I'm standing there waiting, I'll just attack him with my weapon, which actually does decent damage on its own, but when Reaping Strike goes off, it's a big burst of damage, and it can also heal you. So we have this there just as a filler, but it does come in quite handy. We've got Siphon Souls, 22 out of 12, and Blood Boil at 18 out of 12. Now look at Blood Boil carefully. Most skills that you're going to see that say Bleed and Vitality Decay will say this amount of damage over 3 seconds, over 4, 5, 6 seconds, however long it is. But Blood Boil is all that damage per second. Per second. Look at the Vitality Decay there. It's doing almost 4,600 Vitality Decay per second. So it's ticking right alongside of all this, which is crazy good damage. And it's dropping the enemy's OA by 210, so very strong there. Spectral Binding, this is going to be our health and OA. This is really good, 17 out of 12, especially when combined with Mogdrogan's Pact. You can see our health again, 20,000 health with this thing. Spectral Wrath is at 16 out of 10, and that's giving us 39% vitality resist reduction. So really, really good there. 8 out of 10 Mark of Torment. This is great for little damage absorption and also reflecting damage, so really good against bosses who hit hard. Master of Death. You guys might look at Master of Death and think that this is kind of a pet bonus, but this build did have some shortcomings when it came to stats, and this fits perfectly with what I needed. I needed Vitality Resist. I needed OA and DA more than anything. OA and DA were really hard to come by, and this is covering it quite nicely. With 75 DA, 9% OA, that kind of takes care of our problem right there. So Master of Death over Harbinger of Souls, and honestly, I made that change. I don't miss Harbinger of Souls at all. Master of Death is great, and I have it at 12 out of 12. You can overcap it if you need more DA, but if your DA is doing okay, I would recommend just leaving it at 12 out of 12. And that brings us to the bread and butter here, Ravenous Earth. We're at 20 out of 16 there. It's doing great damage. Decay is dropping their damage by 27%. It's also buffing your vitality damage, but 27% damage reduction to your target is huge. And then Foul Eruption, I only have 1 point here because this requires an enemy to die and explode in a 2.6 meter radius to hit another target. It just doesn't do much. Unless you're fighting a big dense pack of mobs, it's not going to be worth it. Definitely doesn't do anything against bosses, so only 1 point there just to make a little use out of it if needed. But that takes care of the skills. Let's jump into the devotions. And again, I'm just going to run through these real quick, but there was a few devotions that I knew I wanted right off the bat. First one, I knew I wanted Twin Fangs, so we grabbed that. I knew I wanted Wendigo, so I worked my way up to Wendigo. I also knew I wanted Hungering Void, so I had to grab Hungering Void. I had to figure out how to get to that one, as well as Will of Ritosh. Those were the 4 devotions that I knew I had to have in this build, and I had to figure out how to squeeze them all in. So Ritosh, the Bat, Wendigo, and Dying God all had to be fit in, and this is how we did it. We have the Hawk, the Lantern, the Jackal, Viper, Sailor's Guide, Eel, Panther, and the Solemn Watcher. Those are all the devotions there, and again, I know I went through this really quickly. If you have questions, leave them down below, but again, there is a GrimTools link if you need to pull this up and take a look at it again and see exactly what all these are doing. Alright, so that is the build. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Again, give this a thumbs up if it helped you guys out. If you enjoyed it and want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But I think it's time to show this build in action. So let's get to it. I'm going to show some clips here, and I think I'm actually going to do an entire second video of this build just showing it in action, just showing off some fights for this build. So let me know down in the comments if you do want to see that. But yeah, let's dive into the action here. Again, thank you guys for watching, and until next time, take it easy.